What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Nautical Narratives. I am your narrator, the one, the only, Mr. First Class. So I hope that everybody's having a wonderful week. I can tell you that work for me has been a little stressful with all the changes that are going on in the federal government, just trying to see how the chips fall. But at the end of the day, it's all in God's hands. That's where I leave it. But this story I wanted to tell you guys is about work, seeing as a stressful situation. This is about the time that I spent 24 hours at work. So it's 2010. If you've watched any of my other stories, you know I'm in Iraq. And the work that we do there is called SSE, Site Sensitive Exploitation. So essentially, team goes out, they grab people, they grab stuff, IDs, passports, books, papers, computers, all that kind of stuff, phones, and we process it, right? And that's pretty much what we do. That's the everyday job. It's just things come in, we process it, we push it out. That's all we do all day long. Or we hold on to it just in case if the person stays with us a little bit longer, we may hold on to it and then send the stuff off with them whenever they get transported to wherever they're going. Now, this particular day, it actually is a couple of days. So over a few days, we are being told there are going to be some missions that are going to be run and to be prepared. So we're like, okay. So essentially what's supposed to happen is they're going to look for one guy. They're going to look for this guy at one location. If they find him on that first location, mission ends and they going on about their business. They come back to us, drop off the stuff. We process and we do what we normally do. However, if that does not happen, then you have a situation of they will hit the next location and then they'll hit the next location. In total, if they do not find the person on the first location, they will hit 7 locations in total. So you have location number 1 and then 6 subsequent locations that they will hit until they find this individual, and maybe they won't even find that individual. Honestly, I think they found him, but really not that important to the story. So it was one of these situations where it's like, it could be a long day, it could be a short day, but we'll see. I go in at 4:00 in the morning. So I'm 4 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. And everybody else in my office has varying shifts, but they're 12-hour shifts always. So 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Now, this particular day, I walk in the door and I instantaneously knew it was going to be a long day. And the look on my coworkers' faces when I walked in the door let me know how much joy they took in them seeing the disgust and the just the exhaustion in my eyes, and knowing that it was about to be a long one for everybody. So I walk in, and the first thing I see my coworker doing is I step into the door. So there's like a cipher lock. It's like these buttons. You have to hit them in a certain sequence. You get in the door, and I open the door, and what do I see? I see there is these like placards. So they basically room, location, whatever. We make these papers, we put them in these like wood boxes, and I see my coworker dumping out garbage bags of cash. instantaneously, I was like, I was so dejected at that point because I knew this is going to be ugly. So ultimately, they ended up hitting all 7 locations. So there are a ton of phones. There is a ton of stuff for us to process. But that money was the biggest hindrance to us getting out of there at our normal times. So, like I said, she is just black garbage bags and she's just dumping cash. Mind you, this is Iraqi cash. This is Iraqi dinar with Saddam's face on it. So this is pre what's the word I'm looking for? This is pre-overthrow of that government and getting Saddam up out of there. So this money still has Saddam on the money. And so I see the pile. It's like, okay, all right. So we process everything else in that location, or, from all the locations. I cannot tell you how many phones there were. I want to say originally there was like 50, 60 something phones that we have to process. And when I say process, I mean, we have to rip the phone of, back then, these are like the low tech Nokia phones. So you're talking text messages, call logs, and contacts. Those are the only 3 things we're really pulling off of phones. This is way before iPhones or smartphones at all were really popping like that. So it's probably 50, 60 phones. That's plus you have to do the SIM card separately, because the SIM cards have information on them separate from what the phone may have. But you're talking 60 phones, and it's like, so I got to process the phones. Plus, I also have to process all of the inventory, which thus means I got to count all that money. And we'll get back to the money in a second. But it is 60 phones, but there is something special about 20 of these phones. And the thing that's special about 20 of these phones is that they have saran wrap around them, and they have some type of like electronic board attached to the phones. And so they're like, whoa, well, we gotta see, it's a call from higher up, whether or not we need to process these phones or we need to leave them as they are and send them somewhere else to be processed. Because again, I don't really want to do 60 phones. Let's just be honest. I don't really want to do 60 phones. Because again, that just makes the day even longer. Well, ultimately, the 20 phones end up not being processed. So now we're only down to 40 phones. The reason why those 20 don't get processed is because these are essentially IED-ready, or improvised explosive device. These are ready to just be attached to some type of ordnance, set up somewhere, and you could just make a phone call to the phone and it would explode. So again, this is Iraq. This is still the heart of the war. So yeah, very dangerous stuff. Now, we do the phones. Again, it's looking like, it's not looking like that 12 hours is going to be a thing for sure at this point. But I do my inventories. But now the thing I have to do, I got to count that money. And the bad thing about this, the good thing is that most of this money is Iraqi. Don't have to deal with serial numbers. However, there's probably like 20 grand worth of US dollars, US currency that we have to inventory by serial number. And if you have ever seen what 20 grand looks like in $100 bills, that's a lot of bills and a lot of serial numbers that you have to document. So I get all that documented, and we have a money machine. So I'm hoping like, oh man, we could just use the money machine on the Iraqi money and all will be well. Well, I put the US dollars, there wasn't enough to need the money machine. I can simply just count it in my hand. It's hundreds, easy. Boom. It's 20 grand, cool. Easy day, right? Well, then we get to the money, to the Iraqi money, and it is hell. Simple as that. It took, and the reason why it's hell is because even though we got the money machine, as soon as we start trying to put the Iraqi money into the machine, it starts to shred the bills up. And we have to be able to be accountable for this stuff. So we have to stop using the money machine and we have to count the money by hand. It takes 10 people total to 10 hours to count this money. That's how much money we had. In total, we got a bad count. It just, like I said, it was a lot. My supervisor at the time, he literally falls asleep in the middle of counting money, wakes back up, and then starts counting money again. So we already knew the count wasn't going to be completely accurate. But once we sent it off and it got a recount and they were able to put it into a machine and it didn't mess the bills up, $59 million in Iraqi dinar. Now, I know most of y'all would want to know, what's the translation? Like, what's the conversion between Iraqi dinar at that time and US dollars? So for 59 million dinar at that time in Iraqi money, it was just under $47,000 in USD. So it's like, we almost could have just gave them 50 grand in US dollars and kept it moving, and rather than having to count all this money that ultimately ended up being useless like very soon afterwards because they were focused on getting Saddam off the money. So we get this money counted. Like I said, that took about 10 hours on top of all the other stuff that we had to do, package it up. Because that's the other part. Once you get all this stuff sent out to different places, because you got interpreters, they interpreting, writings. You have the phones. I'm doing the phones. You have somebody that is scanning a lot of the documentation as far as like IDs and passports. With all of that, we hit 24 hours. And when I tell you, I was exhausted. And for hitting 24 hours, they were like, oh man, you could come in like 2 hours later than you normally do. So rather than come in at 4, just come in at 6 tomorrow. That was the reward for doing 24 hours. And I can tell you that is not the last time that we did 24 hours. And honestly, I had to fight because one of the other times that I did 24 hours, I was fighting to do over 24 hours just so I could make sure all the things were inventoried properly. Everything was where it needed to be and boxed up. Because once it's boxed up and sealed, then I'm able to relax. I'm able to turn my mind off, and hopefully, because at that point, then everything is secure. I'm not allowed to do it on that day. Well, when I'm not allowed to do it that day, the fear I had was that the money or something was going to get mixed up. And sure enough, 3 or 4 months go by. These people get released. And what are they talking about? Where is my money? And the minute I heard that complaint, my mind went right back to that day, and it went right back to those cases, and me not being allowed to stay just like a few more minutes just to make sure everything was packaged correctly. But with that being said, that is another day in the life in Iraq. I got a question. Leave it in the comments. What was the thing or the moment or the day or the circumstance that you came into work and you immediately knew it was going to be a long day? Like I said, drop it in the comments. Let me know. I definitely would love to read, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm sure I'm not the only one that has some type of crazy story, and it does not have to be military. You could be a civilian. My mama being a nurse, I know she had some crazy nights. I have had to deal with those crazy nights emotionally. My mama has come home and I've had to hold my mama as she broke down crying. So I know military people aren't the only ones that deal with crazy things or have crazy experiences. And like I said, the minute you walk into work, you know this is going to be a long one. So with that being said, as always, if you like the content, like it, come on, dog, don't take nothing. Click, you know what I'm saying? Click the little thumb, you know what I'm saying? Like, comment, subscribe, share. It's important. Get it out there. Get it out there to the people who want to hear this content, who need to hear the content. Because at the end of the day, I know some of us are just making content to make content, but I personally like helping other people. And I feel like it may be telling my stories and getting people dialoguing that somebody else can get some stuff off their chest, get it off their mind, and maybe do a little bit of healing. As always, that is ultimately my goal with all things is to try to help others, not just be here running my mouth in this microphone. It's really just I want to help other people, but I figure I'm not afraid of sharing. And so maybe in me not being afraid to share, it'll spark somebody else to want to share their stories or their experiences. So with that being said, as always, fair winds following seas, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.